This is another video by Haste Computer Repair. Today we're taking a look at a custom-built small form factor budget gaming and workstation PC. Inside of this relatively plain but highly functional small form factor PC case put out by a group named Ciara is a rather interesting combination of hardware. Here we have a NVIDIA RTX A2000 graphics card with 6GB of GDDR6 memory. Probably one of the more interesting workstation graphics cards that you can fit into a small form factor case like this. Underneath the stock AMD Wraith CPU cooler, we have the AMD Ryzen 5 3600X 6-core 12-thread CPU. And that is 32GB of crucial DDR4 Pro RAM at a frequency of 3200 MHz. For storage, we have a Samsung SSD 980 NVMe solid-state drive with a capacity of 1TB, currently running Windows 11 Pro. Gigabyte GA-A320M-S2H motherboard, and powering it all is this low-profile Sparkle Power 300-watt power supply. Also featured in this case is a CD/DVD-RW optical drive, further space for hard drive or expansion bay card readers, and a 90mm air intake fan. There isn't much room for the installation of other air cooling, however, this air intake directly blows cool air up to the NVIDIA graphics card, which is the blower style variety, and that will help ventilate the warm air coming from the graphics card and other components of the system to be drawn out of the rear of the case right here. Of course, the power supply fan will help with this a little bit as well. A nice feature of this case that sets it apart from other brands like Lenovo, HP, etc. is the passive air intake above the CPU cooler, so it can draw in plenty of cool air from the top and also the side, and some further ventilation farther along the case. Before we move on, I'd like to talk a little bit about this graphics card and why it may or may not be a good choice for you. The specs of this card are actually quite impressive for its size. I don't think you'd find a better graphics card that would fit a small form factor PC like this one. The best comparison I can come up with is the low-profile GTX 1650 or maybe the Radeon RX 6400, but although the RX 6400 will give you slightly better gaming performance, it does lack certain things like codecs for recording gameplay or setting up live streams. You will easily find drivers for this graphics card on the NVIDIA website. However, you should note that there is only production branch/studio drivers, not game-ready drivers. So if you are wanting to purchase this graphics card for just gaming, I would really consider how much it costs and what kind of benefit you're going to get. If you're lucky like me and find this for a pretty good price of 350 Canadian dollars, I honestly think it'd be a solid choice for video editing and general workstation use, and can definitely handle a lot of gaming, as we'll see coming up. It's also important to consider that I build systems as part of a little home business I operate, and that means I'll have access to a lot of equipment that looks like this, and it makes a little bit more sense for me to spend money on parts like this because I might have something laying around like this PC case and power supply that'll really cut the cost down and have this make a lot more sense to build. When I purchased this card, it only came with a full height bracket, so I had a friend 3D print a bracket, and this turned out to be a very economical choice. However, there are lots of options on eBay that are also not very expensive. Another thing you might want to consider is what type of motherboard are you wanting to connect this graphics card to. In particular, this Gigabyte A320M conforms to PCI Express 3.0 standard. So it is running at x16 speeds, but as we see here, the RTX A2000 supports PCIe Gen 4. Personally, I'm not too worried about investing in a motherboard with PCIe Gen 4.0 for this build because I am sticking to a budget. I honestly found that the performance was still really good, and you know what, if I were to use this system or to somebody that I might be selling it to, they always have the option to upgrade to a motherboard that does support PCIe 4.0 and still use the graphics card, CPU, and everything else included in this case. Don't get me wrong, I'd love to just go buy a new motherboard, but budget is budget, and that's what we're sticking to. On the I/O of the Gigabyte motherboard, we have mouse and keyboard PS2 ports, VGA, DVI, and HDMI that we won't be using because the 3600X does not support onboard video. We have USB 3.1, USB 2.0, RJ45 Ethernet port. audio in and out, and the RTX A2000 supports 4x mini DisplayPort, so you might want to look into something like a DisplayPort to mini DisplayPort adapter or HDMI to mini DisplayPort adapter, etc. The front I/O of this PC case also supports USB 3.0 and additional microphone and headphone jacks. There's that LG optical drive. Alright, so it's time to transition to the gameplay and benchmark footage. I won't be talking anymore, so if you have any comments or if you have any questions, feel free to leave them below, and I'm sure to get back to you. Otherwise, I was quite pleased to test this system out. I'm kind of lucky that I found a RTX A2000 for this price. I was really curious to see how it would perform with this setup, mainly being how much heat it would generate, what the gaming performance would be like, and what I can judge the relative performance for other workstation tasks could be. That's about as in-depth as I'll get for this video, so you might want to check out additional resources online. So with that in mind, thanks a lot for watching. Let's check out the gameplay and benchmark footage.